Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the Real Ballz podcast. I am Ryan Squires, your host, and boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about today. Got some awesome things going on right now, and I really look forward to being able to share all that and going over everything. It's been a very hectic few days for the Real Ballz podcast, and I'm really excited to get going. So I want to start off by just saying, wow. The news broke last night that the PBA, Fox, and Flow Sports are offering $1 million prize for a perfect game. Unless you've been living under a rock, if you're a bowler, holy shit, that's incredible. So I've been saying from the beginning that this partnership with Fox and this partnership with Flow Sports by far outweighs anything that ESPN ever did. ESPN used the PBA as simply nothing more than filler time. Hey Gary, how are you? They basically said, hey, we have a spot and we want something on there. We don't care if you're throwing telephone poles or whatever it is. We just got to fill airtime. So they'd put bowling on. And our season would be broken up into 15 different, weeks, and they'd be all spread apart. It was awful. But when the PBA partnered with Fox, Tom Clark caught a lot of criticism for a long time. But the deals he's made recently, man, they are going to do great things for bowling. And I'll be honest with you, I'll get into some more honesty here in a minute. But the fact is that this partnership with Flow Sports and with Fox is going to be a great thing. It really is. It's going to help the sport of bowling. Any event that they have on Big Fox is going to be a big deal. It's going to be a whole new audience. A lot of people don't subscribe to ESPN anymore. One, because they have shitty coverage. Two, it costs more money. But at the same time, any event that puts bowling on Big Fox that's not competing directly against the Super Bowl, well, that's going to be a good thing for the sport of bowling. But let's be honest here. I know that these guys are the best in the world. They're the best there are out there, and it's possible. But the reality of a title match 300 on one of those events, whether it be the World Championship, the TOC, the Players Championship, or the new Indianapolis Open. Of those four events, the likelihood of somebody shooting a 300 in that final game, it's pretty slim. It's not a huge, gamble. It's a gamble, really. It's like winning the lottery in a sense, because what you'll see is, we've seen television 300s, but if you add up all the TV 300s we've seen in the past decades, and you can count them, and you just think, okay, what are the odds that they're going to shoot 300 in one of these four events? I think it would be awesome. I think it would be the thing that would make bowling just absolutely blow up. I hope someone does do it. But I would say that $1 million prize might be pretty safe for the time being. And to be quite honest with you, when were at Ultimate and we had the Ultimate 7-10 split conversion for the $100,000, it was always an anticipation thing. Every time someone would leave a 7-10, we never sat back and worried about it. All this stuff's insured, but every time someone would leave a 7-10, it was always, oh my God, could it happen? Could they make it? If they make it, how cool would it be? I love looking back and watching Bob Learn shoot 300 on TV, because when he shot 300 on TV, one, the crowd was packed. Two, the excitement in the building was just incredible. And three, Bob still had hair, and he was running back and forth, and, he had, I can't remember if he had a mullet or just really blonde hair, but either way, it was in Erie, in his hometown, and it just was so exciting to watch. It brought a lot of excitement. So if somebody does get the front 9, front 10 in one of those, it's going to be a big deal. And, it's big enough to compete for the larger prizes that are being offered. But can you imagine having $1 million on the line for you to get a strike? If you don't strike, you lose $1 million. And as an NBA player, or as a football player in the NFL, that may not be a big deal. But as a bowler, if you lose $1 million because you accidentally tug one to the left or dump it a little bit, oh, you'll never forgive yourself. Never forgive yourself. But it's so cool to see. I'm so stoked that bowling is making such waves and is continuing to, just get better and better. All the stuff that Flow has added with their camera work and whatnot and their sponsorship. And then now Fox is really putting stuff together to make sure the PBA is a success. And I really like that. I love seeing these announcements. It's great for the sport. But the Fall Swing kicked off, which is sponsored by Flow Bowling. And they're bowling Wolf today and tomorrow. They're bowling Bear on Wednesday and Thursday. Friday and Saturday, they're bowling the Tulsa Open. So that'll be really exciting to watch. When it comes to those events, they may not be majors, but having all those events at one time, it's so exciting to watch because of the fact that no one is ever out of it. They're always competing, and it's always good to see that bowling is back. But it's not only back, it's back in a season. And that's one of the biggest things I always said was what sucked about bowling is it was never in a season. You'd have the World Series in November-ish, October-ish. Then you wouldn't have majors till February. And then you'd have Maine in like March. It just made no sense. It was just a shitty schedule. But now, with them actually having a season that's going to kick off at the end of the year, it's going to be great to see that and go from there. But I'm going to cover the fact that Wednesday's show is going to be taped. And it's going to be taped. I'm actually editing it right now. But it's going to be taped because I'm doing some interviews with some pro shop operators. I'm doing interviews with Mike Riggins of the Bowler's Shop, John Squires from Strikes 300. I'm doing interviews with a couple of other pro shop operators. And I'm just basically getting some perspective from them and whatnot. And I'm going to edit it all together, put it up on Wednesday, same as if it was just a regular podcast. It just won't be live. I hope you all check it out and share that video because it's going to give you an insight into what your pro shop operator thinks when you walk in the door. But if you're a pro shop operator, it will also give you some insight of what other pro shop operators think, what their opinions are and whatnot, especially as the game has continued to change. So Wednesday's show will still be up. It just won't be a live show. And it will be covering pro shops, interviews. It's going to be a really exciting show because it's going to be outside of my office and we'll be covering different pro shops and checking out all kinds of cool stuff. They'll even be talking about some of the new equipment and some of the new toys that they have in the back to use to work on your bowling equipment and whatnot. But I really want to get your feedback. I want to get your feedback on who you want to be interviewed or who you would like to see interviewed, what you'd like for me to ask them, things of that nature. Because the one thing I'll say is I want to interview certain pro shop operators that maybe you don't. I want to interview certain players that maybe you don't. So I want you guys to tell me who you want interviewed. And with the massive growth numbers that we've seen over the last month, everybody's got an opinion. And I know that for a fact because some of them are real assholes. But some of them are actually really good opinions and whatnot and have really good questions. And I'd like to get those questions answered. So if you have someone you want interviewed, if you have questions you'd like asked, let me know and I will make sure to do that because I really want to get different perspectives. I want to get perspectives of people who are living that business day to day. Like Jason said, interview realists. And that's one of the biggest things I try to do. So when I interviewed Mike Riggins, one of his big ones was he actually discussed staffers, but one of his big ones was just the state of the industry. Because when I was growing up, Mike Riggins wrote the article for Bowler's Journal. He did it for like 15 years. And he had a pro shop that, I kid you not, it made some arcades look small. It was huge. It ran multiple drill presses. It was a large shop. And, when he compares the state of the industry back then to what it is now, it's a different ballgame. It's not necessarily good or bad. It's just different. And that difference is something that we do cover in the interview. And a lot of it has to do with merchandising. A lot of it has to do with coaching demands, requests, the differences that have changed over time. So Jason, I am going to interview a couple of different people that I consider realists. I try to be a realist as much as possible, just simply because of the fact that I know what it was and I know what it is. And I don't think everyone says it can't come back. I think that's total crap. I think it can come back without a problem. I just think that it takes people who are willing to recognize that there is a problem. It's like they always say, you can't fix something unless you admit that there's something to fix. And that was my big thing. When I started this, people used to always say, you're just wanting to tear down the sport of bowling. And I would always tell them, I don't want to tear down the sport of bowling. I want to help the sport of bowling. But you have to tear down some of those bricks in order to rebuild it with better ones, And so I agree. The realist, very important. You won't find me interviewing, if any, staffers, because we all know that typically staffers candy coat shit, and you're right, it absolutely is not. You're not going to get an honest perspective. You could say, what do you think about this ball? And they'll tell you it's made of gold and the best thing that ever happened, when in reality it may be a big piece of crap. So we want people who are going to tell the truth, going to identify a problem, and not just identify a problem. I want people who will identify a problem and then offer a solution that goes with it. Because I get tired of hearing people just identify problems. It's like I've said in my last couple of podcasts. People can sit there and comment and say you suck, or they can say, this is what's wrong, but none of them offer a solution. None of them offer a good argument to go with it. And that, to me, is the worst thing you can do, because all that is complaining, So I want to interview the people who have real qualms with the sport, but also have a good solution to help fix it. I think that could be very constructive. But like I said, to anybody who doesn't watch the live broadcast, all those people, leave comments, messages. Let me know who you want interviewed. Let me know what you want asked. I'll be happy to follow up and do that. Let's see. So one of the things that I want to get into for pro shop operators is price versus knowledge. I've always had a real stickler on this, because I've always believed that your price should reflect your knowledge. And if you have knowledge, if you have an extensive amount of knowledge, more so than somebody else, you should be able to be paid for that. The problem is that's not always the case, because typically customers will go to the cheapest route. So I want to know if you're a bowler who is a customer, I want to know if you will purchase from the cheapest person, if you'll purchase online, if you do research and look for, the best, most knowledgeable person. And then as a pro shop operator, if you're the only one in town, do they come to you and buy from you because you're the only one in town? Do they buy online and then bring it into you? If you have multiple shops around you, how does your business work? How do your customers work? Do they come to you because of your expertise, or do they come to you because you have the cheapest price? I think it's a shame if you have to have the cheapest price to compete, even though you have the most knowledge. That's the unfortunate part. And so I really want to make sure that I cover that and get some answers from anyone who's a pro shop operator. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you think that in today's day and age of bowling, whether or not your knowledge matters. And I know your knowledge matters, but at the same time, in my argument with Ipsia was that they were looking to train. They were looking to put the sticker on saying, this person is a knowledgeable person in this field. But does it matter? Do customers care? Do they care what your knowledge is, or are they simply just in there to buy a ball because it's the cheapest? All right, Jason, what you got? I've always bought online and went to whom I thought would benefit me the most. And see, it's funny that you say that, Jason, because what I used to always say is that there was people who used to get very upset as a pro shop operator when the internet first took off. People would buy bowling balls online because prices were so much cheaper. And at that time, the pro shops had not adjusted for people buying online. So it was still cheaper than what they were selling it in store for. Now, you make a good point. You say, I drove 3 hours to have someone punch a ball for me because they PAP me and actually cared about my ball roll specific to my game. Now that right there, that's important because, like I said, people used to get bowling balls online and pro shop operators used to get upset about that. I have always had the opinion of, if you want to buy a ball online, you're doing me a favor because I'm going to get cash to drill it for you, okay? I'm going to get the grips and the slugs and whatnot if you use those, but at least the drilling fee. Now, I also no longer have to stock that item. I don't have to order it. I don't have to purchase it. I don't have to have it sit on my shelf. So buying online is not a bad thing. And any pro shop operator who thinks that, oh, someone bought online, you know, what a jerk, they're looking at their business the wrong way. Now, you, on the other hand, you are looking at it the right way because the fact that you drove 3 hours to make sure that you got the correct person to drill your ball is so important. So many shops will simply get your ball, and I've seen shops pull the layout sheet out and just be like, oh, I'll lay it out exactly like the picture looks. Well, the fact is that picture isn't you. And if they can't take the time to get your PAP, if they can't take the time to watch your rotation and get the information necessary for your success, then you need to go to a different pro shop. And that's just simply, and that's not knocking on some of these pro shops. A lot of them just don't know. Some of them don't know how to get PAPs, which is sad because they're in the pro shop business. It's kind of their job. But, you know, it just like in any other industry, there's people that aren't very good at their job. You know, there's a lot of people out there who are doctors that are really shitty doctors. They went to school forever and they still don't know anything. I mean, it's the same thing in the pro shop business. So, you know, if somebody is a new bowler, I can understand it's a little bit more difficult because you've got to, you know, really figure out what it is first that's going to help them, then get, you know, worry about the rest of that when it comes to the PAP. But if you're a bowler who bowls regularly, finding a good pro shop operator who takes the time to watch you bowl, takes the time to look at your rotation, get your PAP, and drill the ball that's best for the condition you're bowling on and what you're describing, that is an invaluable service. You cannot, and I'm sure you would agree that you would not complain about the price of the drilling simply because that right there shows you that while you may be able to get it cheaper closer to home, you're not going to get that same quality service. And that service is a very valuable service. I'm glad that you found somebody who was there and willing to do it. I've seen people, and I have people message me all the time that say, hey, I keep asking for my PAP and they won't tell me anything about it. They won't give it to me. They won't even look for what my PAP is. And I just tell them, I simply say, go to another pro shop. You know, you've got, I personally don't give out measurements. That's my intellectual property. I don't give them out. I will sell them, but I don't give them out. But that does not mean that I don't get your PAP. And if they won't get your PAP because they say it's irrelevant, then that pro shop's irrelevant and you need to move on to another one and try to find somebody who does. So I'm glad that you found somebody who took the time to work with you and get you set up with what you need. Steve, what do you got? Pro shop operators that invest their time. Hold on just a second, Steve. Pro shop operators that invest their time and effort into making them knowledgeable should be able to ask top dollar for their sales and service. But from what I see in my area, many are pro shop loyal, but just as many shops for the lowest price. My prices are better than everyone else in my area, yet I still feel I have good margins. You know, Steve, I think you're right. And I think there's a give and take there. So our shop in Noblesville, we always had the lowest prices, but it wasn't necessarily because it was cheap. It was because the people that had the shops at the other centers that were in Indianapolis were so high. They were at full-blown retail. And this was, I don't know what the retail is now, but back then it was like retail was $249.95, right? And I would look at that and thought, man, if I could get $249.95, wouldn't that be great? You know, we would be at like $209. And that was a fair price. It competed with the internet. But I do agree with you as well. There is a happy medium there And the biggest thing I think, and I would agree with you on, is that your knowledge is what your biggest tool is. I mean, I never have understood why people undervalue their knowledge. It's like I always said, it's price guilt. They feel like they should give this person a break because it's not worth that much. Your knowledge is only worth what you think it's worth. And so I've always said that if you have the knowledge to do something that someone else doesn't, that's your biggest skill. I had a guy one time ask me, he said, why do you charge $60 to drill a ball? I mean, you're just putting 3 holes in it. I just told him, I said, look, I said, you brought it to me. I said, you have a drill press? He goes, yeah, I got a Makita in my garage, like a drill press. I said, okay, it's only drilling 3 holes. Here's the ball, go drill 3 holes in it. You know, simple as that. If it's that easy, go drill 3 holes in it. Why don't I how? Well, I do, and you don't. Therefore, I have a skill that you don't possess. That skill costs money because it's a knowledge that I have that you don't, that I've acquired, and therefore, you're paying for a service. It's no different than if my car breaks down and I got to take it to the mechanic. Just because I have the tools to fix it doesn't mean that I am smart enough to figure out how to do it. And so that, to me, is my biggest thing, is when somebody degrades your knowledge, it's very easy to say, look, I have a specialty that you don't. Just like this is my profession, just like you have your profession. I wouldn't expect you to work for free or work cheaper in your profession, so don't expect me to do it in mine. So I agree with you, Steve. Let's see, what do you got now? Let's see. Hold on, I got to pull this one up. I see 2 other shops in my area that just punch holes and send them on their way, undercutting my prices just to make a sale. I've had to do re-drills, resurface numerous balls this season alone because of the lack of knowledge of those individuals. It gives us good guys a bad rap. So one of the cool things I think about what you just said is, yes, it does give everyone a bad rap. But on the bright side, it gives them an even worse rap. So now they have to bring it into you. And I've actually had this argument. When I did my podcast on used bowling, as I called it, the epidemic, or used bowling opportunity, I used to always tell people, I'd say, you know, sure, it's going to cost more money for me to plug it and to do it the right way, and I'll do it the right way. And they'd say, and the ones that would say, no, I don't want to do that, I'm going to go somewhere else, it's cheaper. Odds are, the majority of the time, I would always say, well, when you need it done correctly, I'll see you then. And sure enough, something would be wrong, whether the span's off, whether the plug, my favorite, when the plug looks like garbage, you know, well, I dumped black plug in a yellow ball because I did it in a garage. You know, the fact of the matter is yeah, they make everybody look bad. But if you're the experienced professional and conduct yourself like a professional, you speak like a professional, you educate the customer like a professional, when they go to that other guy who's cheaper, what's going to end up happening is they're going to quickly realize, unless they're a total dumbass with no brain in their head, that you obviously are more qualified to, you know, to do the job than they are. Simple as that. It does give everyone a bad rap, but it actually makes you look better, and it's going to make you more profit in the end because you're going to be fixing all their screw-ups. Try to keep that guy in business, because the longer you keep him in business, I mean, even if he's just doing 130 drillings and drilling like shit, the longer you keep him in business, the more plug work you have, which means the more labor you got, which means the more cash you got in your pocket. So I totally agree. Let's see. I also think, Ryan, you should look at, hold on. You should look at corporations versus independent shops. Independent shops value you more. Actually, I am going to, Jason, I'm going to not answer that one at this moment, only because I've got a podcast coming up on Friday that is that exact topic. I wasn't going to talk about it, but that's my exact topic on Friday, because it's not just the service and the sales and the corporate versus the independent. It's the ability and the pricing that they have and the ability to be successful. I'm not necessarily going in the attitude of that they are wrong. They have every right to do business the way that's the best of their ability. But if you've ever had multiple shops, what ends up happening is you really start to struggle trying to find help who is knowledgeable. So when we got up to multiple shops, oftentimes you take over, there'd be somebody there. And now you got to trust that person to hope that they can run the shop, but you got to teach them the right way to do it because there's a reason you're taking over. But if they leave or you don't have someone to help, it is not easy to find help because this is a specialty industry. This is a specialty industry that is not, there's not exactly a line of people on Indeed or Career Builder who's lining up to say, hey, I have experience as a ball driller. It's just not out there. You typically always have to train. And you and I both know, if you've drilled balls, that anybody can learn to drill a ball just a little bit. But to really know how to effectively drill a ball and effectively do it well, and the knowledge, it just takes years and years and years to learn layouts and to really master the game. And I'm telling you, it's not learned in a quick powerhouse, level 1 class. It's just not. And you have to have that experience. Hell, I'll even say you have to screw up a few times. It just happens. So these corporate pro shops, it's a little bit different. I'm going to talk about that on Friday. It's a little bit different because they don't necessarily, they've got to find people who are working them. But does that necessarily mean that, one, their prices are any better, but two, that the people they're hiring have the knowledge that is necessary to continue to be successful? Oftentimes you'll see them have higher prices simply because they have to pay higher wages to get someone who's got experience drilling bowling balls, and they've got to be able to pay them. Pro shop margins are not that great and not great enough to just keep paying people at a higher rate. You'll end up going broke, and nobody wants that because it just doesn't work. It's not a good model. So on Friday, I am going to cover that, and it's going to be the corporate shops versus the small town shops, but not even the small town shops. The corporate shops versus the 2 or 3 location shops, the ones that are trying to get bigger but are hitting roadblocks. There's certain things, there's advantages and disadvantages to all of them, but I am going to cover that on Friday. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Jason. That's awesome. But, like I said, I just want to get everybody's feedback on how they buy, on what pro shops, what goes into their decision making, whether it's training, price, all that stuff. I will have the Wednesday show up by 5 o'clock. Like I said, I'm editing it now. It's going to be a longer show, and it's going to take a while to get uploaded, but it's going to be a longer show, and it's only because of the interviews, and I actually kind of tour the shop that I'm out of and kind of show what it is that merchandising it should look like, can look like, and really how to maximize your dollars in the pro shop. So I'll be having that up on Wednesday at 5 o'clock. If you have questions, let me know. Most of all, and first and foremost, interviews. If anybody has an interview that they want me to do, somebody they want me to talk to, questions they might have for that person, let me know. I'll be happy to reach out to them and see what we can set up. But in the meantime, subscribe to Flow Bowling so that you can watch your fall swing. It's going to be a good one. And, let's just be excited for the fact that bowling's back with the PBA and Fox and Flow. And, I'll see all you guys on Wednesday, not live, but on Friday, I'll see you live at 5 right here on the Real Ballz podcast. I appreciate you guys chiming in and putting your comments in here. As always, our audience continues to grow, and I can't do it without you guys. Make sure to share the podcast, and I'll see you guys all again on Friday. Thanks. Have a good evening, guys.